Howdy everyone, I'm back here with a promised video on LMT bolt carrier group interchangeability with Aero Precision's bolt carrier group. Now, I am not a gunsmith. This is to be considered random internet gossip. You must verify your own situation and condition before relying on anything else you've read anywhere. Take your firearms to a reliable gunsmith, have them checked, and make sure all components interoperate before assuming it is safe to fire. I take no liability, responsibility, consideration for damage to your firearms from anything I say or anybody else says or anything you do. I got a set of go, no-go, and field gauges from a company called Manson Reamers. You can get these online. They're about $40 each. They sell a set of 3. One thing to consider if you're working on AR10s is that the dimensions that you get for Headspace gauges are slightly different. By slightly, I mean it's a few thousandths of an inch between 308 Winchester and 7.62 by 51. The set that I'm using is 7.62 by 51. Now, you can spend a lot of time reading about Headspace. It is an AR10 chambered for 7.62 by 51. These gauges will give you a reading of how much space lies between the bottom of the case and where the headspace is measured, which on the 308 is about halfway up this shoulder. And what that decides is this the proper dimension to hold the case, depending on how the chamber is cut and depending on how on where the front of the bolt interacts in the chamber. So that's the measurement. This is to SAAMI specification. There's a different specification for Europe, and these gauges, these Headspace gauges, there's some variability as it relates to the different ammo and different chambers. For example, if you know what an FN FAL is, there's a different Headspace gauge dimension for all 3 gauges for that firearm versus a United States M14, or as what we know as Springfield M1A. But anyways, what these are measuring is the space from the bolt face to the datum line or the shoulder in the chamber. I have a printout of a 7.62 NATO cartridge, an M14 chamber, and that says that the headspace should be 1.634 minus 0.006. So it can go all the way down to 1.628 and all the way up to 1.634. The round will chamber if it headspaces at that dimension. The 7.62 by 51 gauges that I have from Manson Reamers have the go dimension at 1.632. So that's what I'm gonna be showing you is my LMT AR10 rifle with an Aero Precision bolt carrier group. Will it work with the Manson Reamers Go gauge, which is 1.632? Now, what I will tell you is you can get the headspace for whatever ammunition you want to shoot, just to make sure that it matches up. Just the go and no-go gauge you can get from Brownells are like $70. A different company makes them, not Manson. You just want to know what it's measuring. So it's basically measuring a dimension where the bolt will interact properly with the chamber, and then measuring a dimension outside of where the bolt will interact properly with the chamber on your rifle. So my no-go is 1.638. We're talking about thousandths of an inch, but those thousandths of an inch can take a rifle into a safe scenario and put it into an unsafe scenario where you could damage a firearm or potentially injure yourself if the headspace is not proper. So with all of that, And I'll show you at the end, I got 3 different types of ammunition here. I got 308 Winchester PMC bronze. I have PPU, which is a 7.62 round, which is popular if you read the internet forums of not chambering in some American-made firearms with tight chambers because the headspace is a little bit longer than our American ammunition. PPU, I think, is Serbian. And then I have Lake City 7.62 by 51, which should chamber in all American AR10s and M14s. And then again, I have PMC bronze 308 Winchester. I will show if the rifle can feed all of those rounds. If you're going to use an Aero precision bolt on your LMT, AR10, or even perhaps your SR25 upper, I would spend some time looking at this. You can take the information that I'm giving you and make sure that it makes sense to you before you commit to doing this. These bolts are extremely hard to find. This is an LMT AR10 bolt carrier group with an LMT bolt and then the LMT carrier. The reason is they're very high quality. They're supposed to be very durable. They have dual ejectors. They have an upgraded extractor with 2 springs. They have a nice coating that is supposed to be easy to clean, although I find I still have to scrub the shit out of there like anything else. But other than that, they're just made perfect. They're very smooth. They function well. I have had 0 hangups using the LMT bolt carrier group. Since the last video that I made, I found an Aero Precision AR10 bolt carrier group on sale. I don't remember exactly how much it was. It was probably $120 or something like that. I have another Aero Precision. The problem with this is it's not a high pressure. So if you're gonna use an Aero Precision bolt with 6.5 Creedmoor, remember this is for 7.62 by 51 or 7.62 NATO. If you're gonna use Aero Precision for Creedmoor, you cannot get the nickel, whatever, boron one. You have to either get the phosphate or is it manganese? The Aero Precision has 2 that they offer that work as a high pressure HP with 6.5 Creedmoor. So that's what I have here. I have this rifle here is 6.5 Creedmoor. This is an Aero upper with a 22-inch 6.5 Creedmoor barrel. So the last video I had, I was tinkering with this bolt in the LMT, and it did close and it did chamber around, although I have not test fired it. And now I have a phosphate version which works for 6.5 Creedmoor. So I'm gonna be running this through with the go, no-go gauges, the Headspace gauges, and I'm gonna be seeing if it chambers and closes on any of these ammunition that I have here. LMT AR10, everything's pretty much standard with this rifle. This came from the factory assembled. This is the DMR buttstock. So we will take, I have removed the ejector and the extractor to allow these gauges to sit flush with the bolt face. So the first test here on any AR10 that you're trying to use a different bolt carrier group is to get the bolt forward. I don't have a firing pin in here. And again, it's missing the extractor and the ejector. So see if it fits. And just with finger pressure now, does it close and line up? So I could tell you that the bolt carrier group is exactly, maybe just slightly protruding. By just slightly, I mean like, I can just feel it. I can't really see it. So if you're gonna use the Lantac bolt carrier group or any other bolt carrier group to try to fit in your LMT AR10, that's gonna be the first visual check, is to see if the back of the bolt carrier group, when fully seated, is just, the bolt carrier group is just a little bit higher than the back of the upper, because that's gonna see if it seats here. So I get good lockup, it's not overly tight, and that first test, it passes. So moving beyond that, we can now work to check the headspace. So I'm gonna pull this out and I'm gonna start with the go gauge. So if you're able to get a good proper lockup of your bolt on a go gauge, that should mean you're good to go. But keep in mind, all that means is I could get the chamber closed at 1.632 on my go gauge. Trying to do this on camera. I'm gonna try to seat the Headspace gauge. Okay, now, again, this should just be finger pressure. So let me push the charging handle forward and I can get it to close with just finger pressure. And looking at it again, I have the same dimension on the back of the bolt carrier to the upper. And can I close my upper now? Yes, I can. I have now shown on my rifle with this bolt that it will chamber a go gauge, which means it will chamber with a headspace of 1.632. So let's move on from here. The next test will it chamber the no-go gauge? I'll explain what that means in a moment. Now we're looking at the no-go gauge. So same thing. Okay, you see now, you see this gap? Okay, you see the gap there? I cannot get it to close. Of course, this doesn't have a forward assist, but I cannot get it to close with the no-go gauge in. So what that means is it will not chamber a round. It will not chamber a round with that headspace dimension of 1.638. So that means the headspace of this chamber with this bolt is somewhere between 1.632 and 1.638. Now, I don't have the whole set to tell you exactly where it's not going to headspace, where it's not going to chamber around, but I do have 3 somewhat common types of ammunition that I could now try to seat and show you that it does work, at least on my rifle with my bolt on all of those. So, locking the bolt back, get the headspace gauge out. Now, there's no firing pin in here, so my risk of a slam fire is non-existent. First round is the PPU, again, 7.62 by 51, which is a little bit notorious for being just slightly too tall for some American chambers. Okay, first thing to notice is there's no gap there. Now I don't have an extractor and ejector, so I'm gonna have to do this. Okay, so that chambered and it appeared to close. Remember, we got the action, the upper and lower closed. Looks fine. PPU worked. Now, next we're gonna do Lake City 7.62 by 51. Looks closed. I'm gonna try a round of this PMC 308. I think this is called 308B. And it closed. So what have we proven? Again, we have not proven anything other than an LMT, Mars, Heavy, whatever, all those acronyms, upper with a Aero Precision Phosphate AR10 bolt in my rifle. It appears to be properly chambering a go gauge, which in my situation is 1.632, and it appears to not chamber a no-go gauge, which in my situation is 1.638. That's what we've proven. Now, from what I've seen, I am going to try and shoot the LMT Mars H upper with the Aero Precision bolt. You're gonna have to stay tuned because it's gonna take me a little bit of time to do that. I do thank all of our current subscribers. We really appreciate the support. We make nothing off of YouTube until I guess we reach 1,000 subscribers. We have had some warnings that our content violates YouTube's restrictions. So I don't know how much longer we're gonna be around. On YouTube, you pick the content that you wanna support by pressing like, by clicking subscribe. There's all kinds of crap out there, meaningless crap. So we do appreciate your support. I don't know how much longer we're gonna be able to, as a community of like-minded people who care about fundamental responsibilities to defend our families, ourselves, and our communities, we're under attack. It's really shameful to see what they're doing when it comes to free speech and as what it relates to our American traditional way of life. Stay tuned. Please subscribe if you're not a subscriber. If you guys have questions, please do let me know. I'm willing to help you in any way that I can. This is particularly a tricky time as far as trying to get this figured out with what components are available and what's out there. So again, thank you guys so much for watching.